Welcome back to Inside the WPIAL, where it's always football season. We are on episode 2 right now for everybody here. No special guest this week. We got some cool ones lined up in the future, though. Had a little bit of a break. We're going to get back to our regular scheduled programming here. Going to try to do this thing weekly. Just give some thoughts on Western Pennsylvania, whether it be Division I sports, Pitt, Penn State, West Virginia, Duquesne, Robert Morris, professional sports, obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers, or more importantly, the WPIAL in Western Pennsylvania high school football. As all of you guys know, I'm the WPIAL Insider, Carlo Zofko. The WPIAL football is my cup of tea. I worked at Pitt for about 7 years recruiting for the WPIAL. Duquesne, I worked for 4 years recruiting the WPIAL. So high school football is near and dear to my heart. And, kind of getting into the high school football aspect of this thing this week, we're going to talk about Western Pennsylvania in the WPIAL a lot and find out what exactly is going on in the WPIAL. Big news, NFL draft was last week. For the first time since 1993, no WPIAL players were selected. How the hell can this be? I can't stand, everybody saying the population, the talent's dried up, this, and that. No, that is only a small percentage of this, okay? The population hasn't really been on the decline since the year 2000, especially not since the year 2010. So, you can look that up and find it. That's true. I get it. The steel mills are drying up. Oh, all the talent, all the gritty, the hard-nosed working people, not here anymore. I don't find that to be true. I really don't find that to be true. No draft pick since 1993. Here were the draft-eligible blue-chip prospects from high school. Now, reminder, this does not include the FCS players. This does not include the group of 5 players. This does not include the Division II or Division III players, of which we know of that group, there are a lot of kids that get drafted every single year. Blackhawks, Marquez Watson-Trent last year, he was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. He transferred to Nebraska. He will probably get drafted, but he could have left this year and probably gotten drafted from the group of 5. But just something to consider. Okay, these are the blue chips that were draft eligible from the recruiting classes of 2019 through 2021. Do any of these names ring a bell to you? Andrew Kristofic went on to Notre Dame. MJ Devonshire, he was drafted last year. Joey Porter Jr. drafted 2 years ago in the second round. Michael Kadick, Will Gibson, Michael Carmody, Dayon Hayes, Zariah Fisher, A.J. Beatty, Josh Rawlings, Josh Kaldenberger, Elliott Donald, Nakai Johnson, Donovan McMillan, Dorian Ford, Khalil Dinkins, Steph Hall, Josh Huff, Andre Porter. There's 20 blue chip prospects in those 3 years. The talent may be on the decline. The population may be on the decline since the 70s and 80s. The talent is still here. Those are 20 blue chip prospects. 2 of them have been drafted. What happened? These are the guys that are the blue chip guys. They need to be impactful. Who were the most impactful ones of this list? For sure, Joey Porter Jr. Was a lockdown cornerback at Penn State. Daquan Hardy also is in that list. He was drafted last year. MJ Devonshire in that list. He was drafted last year. Sure, Hardy and Devonshire were late round picks, but still, a draft pick is a draft pick. But that's it. There's only 3 blue chippers drafted from that talent pool. And remember, 2019, 2020, 2021, everybody was saying Western Pennsylvania's back. Look at all the 4-star prospects. We are back. Not many panned out. Let's just call a spade, but why is that? From what I see, especially today, these guys are picking up offers. They're getting their 3 and 4 stars. These guys think they made it. They kind of quit working. It's not all of them. So I don't want to group everybody into that because a lot of guys had really nice careers. Josh Kaldenberger had a nice career. Khalil Dinkins having a nice career at Penn State. Donovan McMillan was an all-ACC selection this year. He got picked up by the Browns. So, I'm not lumping them all together and saying that they're all bust because they're not. But certainly we should have a better than 3 and 21 draft picks, right, for our blue chip prospects. Need to be better than that. But why is this? These kids are now getting rankings thinking that they made it. That's when you have to turn the heat up to 10, When you are deemed a top prospect, when you are deemed a guy that, hey, you can go compete in the SEC, hey, you are a four-star prospect, top 200 player, you need to crank the heat up. You need to work 10 times harder. Now you're amongst the elite of the elite. I feel like we're getting a sense around here that our Western Pennsylvania players are being little fish in a big pond. You know, the guys that go to the SEC, the guys that go to the Big Ten, the guys that go to the bigger ACC schools, they're not cutting it, and that's just a fact of life. Last year, you know, Penn State made the playoffs. Well, who from the WPIAL contributed to that Penn State team? They went all the way to the Final Four. Who was on the two deep? It's a legitimate question. Tamir Robinson was on the 2.5 deep, I think. Khalil Dinkins was like the 2.5 tight end. You know, they got in the game a little bit. Khalil certainly more than Tamir, but they're not really contributing, especially at Penn State where there's a large WPIAL presence. Well, why is that? Pitt, they didn't have many blue chippers last year, especially not four-star recruits from the WPIAL. They had a couple guys help them out. Derek Davis, he had the game-winning touchdown against West Virginia. Donovan McMillan, as we said, he had a nice career at Pitt the last couple years of his career, but he went down to Florida, transferred back to Pitt. Mind you, Derek Davis went down to LSU, transferred back to Pitt. Why is this happening? Why is Andrew Kostofik? Why is Michael Carmody? Why are those guys not here? What is going on in Western Pennsylvania that these guys aren't developing and taking it to the next level? I think a lot has to do with some outside noise. You know, everybody hears about the uncles, the trainers, the 7-on-7 coaches, the assistant coaches. They're all around here, running around acting like they know exactly what's going on. And, hey, you have to do this to dominate. You have to do this to go into the league. Can we keep the main thing the main thing? I don't think that this is a coincidence that this times up with NIL. I really don't. We have to keep the main thing in Western Pennsylvania. That's the truth. You have to get on the field, and you have to go play. You have to develop yourself in college. You're not going to walk into a program, especially a program like Penn State or LSU or even Pitt, be a 4-star, 5-star guy and think that you're walking on the field and you're doing these teams a favor because you went there. You have to get there, develop for a year or two, and then crank the heat up, turn it up the last couple years, go win some awards, go be an all-conference selection, and go get drafted. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. We are much better than 2 or 3 guys getting drafted within a 3-year draft class window. We are much better than that. What happened? I think our guys are looking at other things. I think that they're too concerned with the NIL money. How much money am I getting up front? What's the plan? You need to start asking, what's the plan to develop me? Where do you see me in the defense? Where do you project me? How can I help your program? I don't think we're getting that right now. It's a shame. It's really a shame. So, yeah, no WPIAL players drafted since 1993, for the first time since 1993. It's a shame. You know, I wish I could say I saw this coming. I didn't see it coming because I can remember being in those Pitt football offices around that time saying the WPIAL is back. Look at all the 4-stars. We need to dominate this. Maybe it wasn't worth dominating. I don't know. I don't understand it. I think that that spring ball has a little bit to do with it. You know, they have spring ball down south. Why is nobody doing track and field? You know, the number one thing that you see is multi-sport athletes getting drafted. Track and field gets your speed and explosiveness through the freaking roof. Why is there only a handful of guys? You know, there's a championship track meet up at Baldwin a couple days ago. Why is there only a handful of football players at this track meet? Everybody needs to run on this track meet. You need to get faster. You need to get more explosive. Kids around here are specializing in football. I don't understand it. Go play basketball. Go wrestle. Go do track. MJ Devonshire, Joey Porter Jr., and Daquan Hardy, especially Daquan and MJ Devonshire, I can remember those two going toe-to-toe on the track meet, back and forth. One would win, the other would win. One would win, the other would win. I think MJ ended up being the top guy after his senior year. But mind you, MJ also scored 1,000 points playing hoops too. So the specializing in football in Western Pennsylvania, it has to go. It has to go. It drives me up a wall. Everybody should be doing track and field. Every football player should be doing track and field. If you wrestle, if you play basketball, if you play baseball, great. Go do that too. We need to figure this out because things aren't right now. And it's not the population decline. That has very little to do with it. The population hasn't declined since the year 2000, hasn't declined since the year 2010, at least not to the point where nobody gets drafted. So it's something more, and we have to figure that out. It's not fun to talk about, but hey, I'm calling a spade right now. My advice, go run track and field in high school. Compete every single day. Just because you get 3 and 4 stars, you think that you made it? I know that Rivals came in last year. There was a top 150 camp in the area. All of the top guys opted out of the top 150 camp. We had 4 guys lose their 4-star status. Rivals said, nope, we're going to take those 4 stars from you. 4 guys lost a 4-star status. That is a pointed effort to say, hey, Western Pennsylvania, you're not as great as you think you are. If Rivals, one of the top recruiting sites, is saying that, maybe we should start listening. I don't think really anybody cared around here. To me, that's a slap in the face. We should feel disrespected. Rivals came in and took 4 4-stars from our top guys because they didn't compete in the camp. Number one, why aren't they competing in these camps? I mean, you have to go out and show out. I get it. Oh, somebody could get injured. I'm going elsewhere. I'm doing this, doing that. Okay, things happen for sure. Scheduling conflicts happen. But when you're going to these camps and not competing, it's a bad look for Western Pennsylvania overall. So something we got to adjust. Moving on to the next subject, now that I'm all fired up and everything. Pitt lose out on 3 WPIAL kids in a week. Lucas Shanafelt, tight end from Peters Township. He goes to Stanford. Jay Timmons, cornerback receiver from Pine Ridge, and probably my favorite player in the class. He goes to Indiana. And then Julian Duggar, Penn Hills quarterback at Pitt, goes to the portal. Bad week for Pitt in the WPIAL. There's no doubt about that. This is a two-way street here, okay? It's not all Pitt to blame. It is not all Pitt to blame. Pat Narduzzi has been at Pitt for 10 years. Early in his tenure, if you remember, he was all in on WPIAL kids. They would park the 18-wheeler outside of the big games for the top recruits. He'd bring the Heisman to recruits' houses. Remember, DeMar Hamlin had the Heisman at his house. He would host fight nights. Remember, I think it was Mayweather versus Pacquiao. He would host a big fight night with the top players. What happened to that? I'm not entirely sure. I was on the staff for the back end of it. COVID really hurt everything. But the 18-wheeler stuff, the taking the Heisman around, that hasn't come back. Well, what's going on there? Well, for reference, when Pitt beat Penn State in 2016, Pitt had 14 starters on both sides of the ball from that game. That's Alex Buchser, Dorian Johnson, Biz Nawadi, Scott Orndorff, Jamar Parrish from Gateway. Remember him? He was the fullback. James Conner, we're counting him. He had a couple years in the WPIAL. On the defensive side, Rory Blair from St. Clair, Sean Idowu from NA, Juan Price, Woody High, Tyreek Jarrett was City League, but we're counting him. Mike Caprera, Woody High, Tarish Webb, Clarendon, Jordan Whitehead, Central Valley. Where are all these guys going? They had 14 starters on both sides of the ball in 2016. But I will give you a flip side of that. Pitt wins the ACC in 2021. How many WPIAL starters were on that 2021 team? This is crazy to think about. 3. Gabe Hoy, Jake Cradle, John Patrician. That's it. So it's kind of give and take. As you can kind of see, things are a little bit different around Pitt. They're not prioritizing it as they did back when Narduzzi first got hired. Can you blame them? I don't know. I think it's a two-way street. I think guys like MJ Devonshire, Tyrese Fearbry, I think guys like Michael Kadick, I think guys like them going to schools like Indiana and Kentucky, I don't think that helps. Why are the high school coaches not pushing their guys to Pitt? MJ Devonshire, he was waiting for a team to offer him. Kentucky was his last offer. He took a visit and he committed. I don't remember the specifics, but I don't think he had a committable offer to Ohio State and Michigan in them by time he was ready to commit. I think that those spots had filled up. So he was waiting for somebody else. Kentucky comes along, he jumps on Kentucky. I think things like that kind of lower the burn to a Pitt staff. Like, okay, if these guys aren't going to prioritize the WPIAL, how are the high school coaches and the people around us not pushing these guys to Pitt? We can't be losing to Indiana. We can't be losing to Kentucky. I think that's a valid point. And another thing, this used to drive me nuts and still does drive me nuts. If you ask any recruit in Western Pennsylvania as a freshman, hey, if you had one scholarship to get, if you had one goal to get one Division I scholarship, where would that be? A lot of kids will probably say Penn State, but I bet you that number one answer is Pitt. Well, how can that number one answer be Pitt, and Pitt doesn't get 5, 6, 7 kids from the WPIAL every single year? How come only Ty Uhas really was the only one to kind of get an offer and commit on the spot? How could that be? The thing that used to drive me nuts, these kids would do anything to get a Pitt offer. And then as soon as they got that Pitt offer, they would do anything to get another offer. They wanted that Pitt offer to kind of wave around, hey, look, Big Ten, look, SEC, Pitt wanted me, but I want to go get you now. Why is Pitt not good enough? Why is Pitt not the destination? That's not only Pitt, that's a little bit of Penn State too. I can remember talking to a kid, I won't say who it was, but he had an offer from Pitt, he had an offer from Penn State, and he had an offer from West Virginia, and he was complaining. How do I not have more offers? What do I need to do to get more offers? Can you tweet this out for me? I said, what more offers do you want? You have Pitt, you have Penn State, you have West Virginia. Do you really need to go up and down the Eastern Seaboard for coaches that won't even know who you are if you don't commit to them? Do you really need South Carolina or North Carolina or Vanderbilt or whoever, Florida State? Do you really need it that bad? Let's prioritize the local schools, because guess what? From the WPIAL, the guys that develop the talent the best, it's Pitt, Penn State, and West Virginia. That's what it is. High school coaches and trainers, they see Pitt as a stepping stone. They're all dying for that offer. But this is only so that they could market that offer to other programs. I can't get down with that. I'll never get down with that. It grinds my gears. I don't like it. Now, this is not to say, because I used to work for Pitt and Pat Narduzzi that hey, he's just taking their back. No, Pat Narduzzi and staff, they need to, they're not bending over backwards anymore. The talent level, the playmaking level at the next level probably isn't worth what they were doing with the 18-wheelers and stuff. But, I think that they do have to do more to get these kids committed. I understand Shanafelt going to Stanford. If I had an offer from Pitt, if I had an offer from Stanford, how can you be a parent and say, you got to go to Stanford? Well, guess what? A lot of kids turned down Stanford. In my opinion, I don't think Pitt should have allowed him to get that Stanford offer. For a couple months there, Pitt was the only Power 4 offer. If you think he's a Power 4 football player, you got to be full court press. You got to go get him. He's a tight end. Tight ends don't grow on trees. Very hard to recruit a tight end. You got to be full court press, get him committed before he even picks up another Power 4 offer. That's just what I think, of course. But I'm the biggest WPIAL guy there is. Okay, there's no close second. But find me a WPIAL player that will jump on a Pitt offer as soon as they get it nowadays. I know Nakai Johnson did in 2021. I know Ty Uhas did. Julian Duggar did. Xavier Thomas did that for Penn State. I enjoy to see those types of things. If you achieve what you wanted to achieve, you get the scholarship you wanted to get, you should take it. And guess what? I would bet those kids probably would give their all to that program as well. Probably will end up pretty decent. But why can't we set goals once we achieve them, shut down the recruitment, and get it rolling? I don't understand trying to collect 30 offers. Do you have to flex that much? 30 uncommittable offers at that. Kind of staying on this thing. The Jay Timmons thing kind of throws me for a loop. Pitt wanted this kid. He grew up in Pittsburgh. Dad was a Pittsburgh Steeler. How do they not close the deal? How does West Virginia not close the deal either? Because they wanted him as well. ACC and Big 12, they're just not sexy right now. Talking to college coaches, talking to some high school recruits, I've never heard anything like this. Maryland, Rutgers, Indiana, they finally have a selling point against teams, especially in the ACC, but in teams like West Virginia and the Big 12 as well. Hey, you're playing with the big boys in the Big 10. Now, of course, that was always the pitch, right? That was always the pitch. Big 10, SEC are kind of the elite dogs. When I was recruiting at Pitt, we used to fight like you couldn't believe to change that narrative. But right now, it's louder than ever. Those TV contracts, everybody's murmuring, hey, there's a big two now. It's the Big Ten and the SEC. That's it. That's the line. We're not blurring the line with other conferences. That is the line. Maryland and Rutgers and Vanderbilt, teams like that, they are pitching that. Hey, Big 12 might not be a conference in a couple years. Hey, ACC, their days are legitimately numbered. They might not even have a conference by the time you graduate. If you're a recruit, you're sitting there thinking, wow, this weighs heavy on me. At least I'll have a place to play on a national TV schedule. I can understand that now. Back when I was at Pitt in 2021 and in 2018 and all that, sure, we heard that, but it's never been louder than it is now. That's the God's honest truth. It's never been louder than it is now. When I was at Pitt, we used to pitch them. Hey, do you want to go to Rutgers or Indiana or Maryland? Do you want to lose to Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan? You want to lose 3 times a year by 60 points each time? You will never have a chance at a championship. Never. How is Rutgers gonna get into the conference championship? How's Indiana? All of a sudden, holy smokes, Indiana was right there to get into the conference championship. I think they lost a tiebreaker to Penn State to get in. So, Kurt Signetti kind of flipped the switch with Indiana. He has things rolling. Jay Timmons likes what Indiana has to offer. Heck, I kind of like what Indiana has to offer. The Signetti guy, he's a Western Pennsylvania guy. He's WPIAL born and bred. He has a legitimate selling point now, and he's using it. And guess what? They were just in the playoffs last year. They were this close to the Big Ten title game. So buckle up, because Pitt in West Virginia, ACC and Big 12, mainly the ACC, though, because the Big 12 is a little bit more rock solid. You better figure something out, and better figure something out quickly, because you're going to continue to lose top kids. You continue to lose top talent. Not good for a conference. That is not good for a conference. Finally, let's get into some NFL talk here. Where's Aaron? Where is Aaron Rodgers for the Pittsburgh Steelers? The Pittsburgh Steelers have 3 quarterbacks on their roster right now. Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, and Will Howard, the rookie, who was a 5th or 6th round pick, whatever he was. Is Aaron going to sign with the Steelers? Boy, I hope so. If not, this organization will look like it's run by a bunch of clowns. I do not think that they are run by a bunch of clowns. I do think that there is an agreement with the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, like, hey, he will be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's no way the Steelers would go in with Mason Rudolph as QB1. And I don't care what anybody has to say about Rudolph being QB1. Oh, give him his shot. He deserves it. No. Mason Rudolph has been around the block a couple times. Mason Rudolph is getting paid $6 million. There's a reason for that, okay? No way do the Steelers let Russell Wilson and Justin Field walk for Mason Rudolph. I don't want to hear about tanking. You know who talks about tanking? Losers talk about tanking. I don't know where this tanking thing in the city of Pittsburgh has come from. It's bad. We need to get the tanking talk out of here. I get it. You want a high draft pick. I get it. You want a franchise quarterback. You don't get it by tanking. The Chiefs didn't have to tank to get Mahomes. A lot of teams didn't have to tank to do that. But Mason Rudolph, he's not the guy. So that's why I think Aaron Rodgers is the guy moving forward. But the Steelers don't need to tank. TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, even a little bit of DK Metcalf here. They're on the tail end of their careers. Not so much DK, but DK is either right in the middle of his prime or at the end of his prime, okay? You only got a year or 2, maybe 3 with these guys left. These are the cornerstones of the franchise. You don't tank for 1 year, draft a rookie quarterback in the top 10, maybe top 5 if the Steelers are that bad, and hope that you hit on the pick. And now you need a year or 2 to develop that rookie quarterback. Now you're looking, will Cam Hayward be around in 3-4 years? What's TJ Watt going to look like in 3-4 years? DK Metcalf, he certainly won't be at his peak game in 3 to 4 years. Minka, I don't think he'll be at his peak game in 3 to 4 years. I think he's at the tail end of his prime right now. I still think he's a great football player, but you got to capitalize with a guy like him. So this is why I say this tanking stuff needs to go. The Steelers are too good to tank. Number one, even if they started to tank right now, they're still going to win games. That defense is too good. Patrick Queen's in the middle of that defense there. That defense is too good to lose 13 or 14 times this year. Do you want to lose 13 to 14 times? That sounds freaking terrible. You sign Aaron Rodgers. I think he's good enough to get 10, 11 wins, get into the playoff, and hopefully you knock down a team or two in the playoff. Because guess what? Aaron Rodgers gets them to 10 to 11 wins. That's what they need to get in, okay? AFC is arguably the toughest it has ever been in NFL history. So, I understand everybody's all pissed off. The Steelers haven't won the playoff in a long time. Well, guess what? Not going to be easy because guess why? Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Drake May, they're not going anywhere. These guys are in the AFC for a long time. These are all franchise quarterbacks for a long time. Any single one of them that I just named, including Justin Herbert, he is that good as well. They can win an MVP at the drop of a hat. I would bet you if you handicapped Herbert, Mahomes, Jackson, Burrow, Josh Allen, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Drake May to win the MVP this year, you're easily at minus odds. Easily at minus odds. That's probably for the next 5 years, mind you. All these guys are pretty young. The oldest of that group is Patrick Mahomes. Good luck. Good luck. You need to bring in Aaron Rodgers. You need to figure out a way. If you can get past this AFC, the NFC, I don't think the NFC will win the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I think the AFC is that good. Now, of course, Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles certainly had a ground game to win it this year. But looking at that AFC, it is not easy. And it's not getting any easier. So you want to draft a quarterback as a rookie and a second-year player and think that those guys are going to just let him waltz into the playoffs and waltz into the Super Bowl? No shot. No shot. This tanking stuff has to stop. Sign Aaron Rodgers, get the 10 or 11 wins, get a playoff win or two. With Aaron Rodgers, I think the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, I think the Steelers can make a run. I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl, but you're certainly going to be in that realm. I really, truly believe that. With Mason Rudolph, good luck. Mason Rudolph gets you 7 wins. 7 wins is not good enough to get a top 5 pick. Not good enough. So Steelers got to figure it out. I do think they do have it figured out. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I'll also say I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be good for the Steelers. I know a lot of people aren't saying that dude can still spin it. He won an MVP less than 5 years ago. So he couldn't have regressed that much. Those are my thoughts. This episode of Inside the WPIAL, episode 2. Looking forward to getting this going every single week. Having guests, have a couple awesome guests lined up throughout the summer. And hey, we're going to get you going. This has been the WPIAL Insider, Carlos Zofko, Inside the WPIAL, where football season never ends. I'll see you next week.